America's next recession is not coming, it is already begun. While Washington insists the economy remains strong, the reality on the ground tells a far darker story. Debt is exploding, credit is tightening, and millions of households are running out of savings. Foreclosures are accelerating at the fastest rate since 2009, and state budgets from coast to coast are sliding deep into deficit. Moody's now warns that nearly one-third of the United States economy has already entered recession territory. Pension funds are running dry, credit ratings are falling, and major employers are cutting jobs at an alarming pace. Across the nation, families are relocating by the hundreds of thousands, searching for stability that no longer exists. The American dream has turned into a countdown clock. This is not a forecast for the future. It is happening right now. These are the 12 states collapsing first as the United States slides into its most dangerous downturn in decades. Each one tells a story of overextended growth, mounting debt, and vanishing opportunity. Subscribe to Discover the Nation for data-driven breakdowns of the forces shaping America's economy. We uncover the numbers, the people, and the truth behind the collapse already underway.
Number 10. Colorado. Colorado was once the shining symbol of modern America's prosperity. With its booming tech industry, breathtaking mountain skylines, and influx of young professionals, it felt unstoppable. But in 2025, the shine is fading, and the illusion is breaking apart. The median home price in Colorado remains near $570,000, while the typical household earns barely $92,000. For many families, nearly half of their income now disappears into mortgage payments, property taxes, and insurance. Affordability has collapsed, and the dream of home ownership is slipping away. Unemployment has climbed above 4%, the highest since early 2021. Tech layoffs have swept across the state as major companies like Google, Zoom, and Salesforce pulled back from overexpansion, cutting more than 11,000 jobs across Denver and Boulder. Once crowded downtown offices now sit half-empty. Vacancy rates in Denver have soared past 30%, forcing landlords to cut rents by nearly 40%. Commercial property values are tumbling, and small businesses are struggling under heavy loans. The state faces a $1.6 billion budget shortfall for 2026, while its public pension system is burdened with over $35 billion in unfunded liabilities. Even tourism, a longtime safety net for the state's economy, is weakening as visitor spending declines and hotel costs climb. Behind the scenic mountain views and vibrant cities, Colorado is quietly entering a phase of economic reckoning. What once looked like limitless growth has turned into fragile overextension. The centennial state is learning that expansion without balance can turn prosperity into pressure overnight. If you want to understand how states like Colorado are unraveling beneath the surface, make sure to subscribe to Discover the Nation. We uncover the truth behind America's changing economy, one state at a time.
Number 9. New Jersey. New Jersey once stood as a model of middle-class strength. From its thriving suburbs to its busy industrial corridors, the Garden State represented upward mobility and security. But in 2025, that stability is collapsing under a mountain of debt and dwindling hope. State auditors have issued a grave warning. New Jersey's cash reserves would last less than 3 days if revenues stopped flowing, the weakest safety margin of any state in America. Each taxpayer effectively owes more than $44,000 just to cover existing debt. Total unfunded liabilities have climbed past $220 billion, and the teachers' pension fund is only 35% funded. Despite years of rising taxes, the state's deficit continues to expand, expected to exceed $5 billion by 2026. The median home price now stands above $530,000, rising nearly 20% in a year, while mortgage rates hover close to 7%. Families are paying more but owning less. Foreclosure rates are among the highest in the country, with 1 in every 300 homes in distress. For those who stay, the burden is overwhelming. Property taxes average nearly $10,000 per household. Energy costs are a third above the national average, and insurance premiums continue to climb. In Newark, Jersey City, and Trenton, commercial properties are going vacant as businesses shut their doors. Office vacancy rates have reached 20% and are still rising. The state's closeness to New York City, once its greatest advantage, now exposes it to every ripple of economic slowdown. The costs of living and doing business have become unbearable for many. The Garden State that once promised opportunity is now running out of time.
Number 8. Maryland. Maryland has always lived in the shadow of Washington. For decades, its economy thrived on federal jobs, military contracts, and government spending. But what was once its greatest strength has now become its greatest weakness. More than 28,000 federal employees work within Maryland's borders, the highest concentration in the nation. When Washington slows down, Maryland feels the shock first. Federal budget cuts and hiring freezes are rippling through the state's economy, tightening paychecks and reducing business confidence. The median home price has climbed to $430,000, while median household income is just under $100,000. The gap between earnings and expenses grows every month. Mortgage rates remain stubbornly high, inflation eats into wages, and foreclosures have jumped by nearly 30% since last year. Office vacancy rates in Baltimore and Montgomery County are now above 22%, with once bustling business districts struggling to survive. Venture capital investment in Maryland's biotech and defense innovation sectors has plunged by 40%. State finances mirror the decline. A $700 million budget deficit looms by 2026, while pension obligations climb toward $25 billion. Even the rainy day fund could be exhausted within a year if the slowdown continues. Highly skilled professionals who once found security here are now moving south to Virginia and North Carolina in search of affordable housing and stability. The state's reliance on federal dollars has turned from shield to chain, leaving its future tied to decisions far beyond its borders. Maryland's strength was built on its connection to power, but that connection now exposes its fragility. For deeper insight into how states like Maryland are caught in the storm of a shifting economy, subscribe to Discover the Nation. We bring you the truth behind the numbers, the stories behind the decline, and the forces shaping America's uncertain future.
Number 7. Delaware. Delaware once built its entire reputation on being America's corporate capital. It was the quiet engine of business registrations, banking, and chemical manufacturing. For decades, the state thrived on its unique tax structure, attracting more than 1 million registered companies, more than its population. But in 2025, that golden era is fading fast. Corporate tax receipts, which make up almost 1/3 of Delaware's budget, have plunged 14% in a single year. It is the sharpest decline in 2 decades. The reason is simple. Corporations are leaving. As businesses flee to states like Texas and Florida for lower taxes and fewer regulations, Delaware's identity as the nation's corporate haven is eroding. The state now faces a projected deficit of more than $1 billion. The median home price has climbed to $370,000, but the average household earns just $76,000. That means nearly 40% of household income is consumed by mortgage payments alone. Families are being priced out, and the middle class is shrinking fast. Foreclosure filings have risen 27%, especially in Dover and Newcastle County. Unemployment is creeping upward, credit card delinquencies are among the highest in the Mid-Atlantic, and grocery and utility costs continue to outpace wages. Delaware's pension fund, with over $8 billion in obligations, is only 65% funded, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Even small economic tremors now create statewide ripples. One large corporate downsizing can erase thousands of jobs, while a single federal budget cut can drain millions from local tax revenue. Delaware's economy is compact, and that makes every hit feel heavier. The state once symbolized financial security and stability. Today, that reputation is collapsing. The very foundation that built Delaware's success is cracking beneath its feet.
If you want to understand how even the smallest states are feeling the shock of America's economic unraveling, subscribe to Discover the Nation. We uncover the stories behind the numbers and the truth behind the illusion of prosperity.
Number 6. Alaska. Alaska's story has always been one of power and independence. For generations, its wealth flowed from one source: oil. That black gold built schools, paid for infrastructure, and filled every household with the promise of prosperity. But in 2025, the last frontier is facing a crisis it can no longer drill its way out of. Nearly 40% of Alaska's operating budget depends on petroleum revenue. Yet oil prices have been hovering around $70 a barrel, well below the state's break-even point of $76. That shortfall has forced the government in Juneau to burn through reserves at record speed, creating a $1.2 billion deficit for 2025. The Alaska Permanent Fund, once the pride of the state, is now being raided to pay for basic operations. At the same time, federal funds make up another 40% of Alaska's budget, a dangerous dependency if Washington cuts spending during the recession. The population decline is accelerating. Over 12,000 residents leave the state every year, heading for the lower 48 in search of affordable housing and stable jobs. In Anchorage, the median home price is near $400,000, while household income averages only $86,000. Energy jobs have dropped by more than a third in the past decade. In tourism, the state's secondary lifeline is fading. Visitor numbers fell 9% last year, and small towns dependent on cruise ships are struggling to survive. The cost of living is staggering. A gallon of milk costs over $7, and a loaf of bread can reach $6. With no new industries and declining oil royalties, Alaska's once proud independence is turning into isolation. The land remains breathtaking. Endless mountains, pristine air, untouched wilderness. But beneath the beauty lies an economy on life support.
Number 5. Michigan. Michigan was once the heartbeat of America's industrial power. It built cars, forged steel, and defined the working-class dream. But today, the engines that once drove the Great Lakes economy are stalling again, and the revival politicians promised never arrived. Manufacturing employment has fallen sharply across the state. Auto layoffs have surged as electric vehicle demand cools and major automakers trim costs. Michigan's unemployment rate has climbed above 5%, the highest in the region. Detroit, which once symbolized America's comeback story, now faces another reckoning. Downtown office towers that once buzzed with life now stand half empty. Commercial vacancy rates continue to rise, and property values in Wayne and Oakland counties are sliding. The median home price statewide sits around $260,000, but with mortgage rates climbing and wages frozen, buyers have vanished. The average Michigan household now spends 36% of income on housing, up from 25% just 2 years ago. Inflation has driven basic living costs higher, and small businesses are struggling to stay afloat. The state's finances tell an equally bleak story. Pension systems carry more than $60 billion in unfunded liabilities, and a budget deficit exceeding $1.2 billion is projected for 2026. The auto industry, once Michigan's unbreakable backbone, is no longer enough to sustain growth. Population decline has returned. Cities like Flint, Saginaw, and Detroit are losing residents again, while younger workers head south or west in search of opportunity. What remains is an aging infrastructure and an economy fighting to stay relevant. The recession is not coming for Michigan. It has already arrived. To stay ahead of the truth and understand how once powerful states are breaking under economic pressure, subscribe to Discover the Nation. Every week, we explore the real America, the one hidden behind the headlines and the statistics.
Number 4. Nevada. Nevada's post-pandemic boom once looked unstoppable. The lights of Las Vegas glowed brighter than ever, home prices soared, and the construction cranes on the horizon promised endless growth. But in 2025, that illusion has evaporated. revealing a fragile economy straining under the weight of its own success. Foreclosure filings now affect 1 in every 300 homes, the highest rate in the entire country. Unemployment sits above 5% and continues to rise as thousands of tourism, hospitality, and construction jobs disappear each month. The state that once symbolized prosperity has become a cautionary tale of what happens when growth depends on gambling and speculation. In Las Vegas, the slowdown is impossible to ignore. Home inventory has surged 45% compared to last year, while property values slide steadily downward. The average household now spends more than 40% of its income on a mortgage, and credit card delinquency has climbed to nearly 6%. Families who once thrived on overtime and bonuses are now juggling debts they no longer manage. Gaming revenue, Nevada's financial heartbeat, has fallen 8% year over year. Convention bookings are shrinking, hotel occupancy has slipped to post-pandemic lows, and commercial real estate in both Las Vegas and Reno is collapsing as investors flee risky markets. Even tax revenue has dropped more than 6%, leaving the state with a projected $1 billion shortfall by 2026. Nevada's economy was built on entertainment, construction, and confidence. But confidence fades quickly when the bills come due. What looked like a dream in 2021 has turned into a desert mirage, shimmering on the surface but hollow beneath. The Strip still sparkles, but the silence in once booming neighborhoods tells another story. A story of a state that grew too fast, borrowed too much, and bet everything on luck that finally ran out.
Number 3. Louisiana. Louisiana's history has always been shaped by storms, both natural and economic. But in 2025, the threat is not just coming from the Gulf of Mexico, it is coming from within. The state's fragile economy is cracking under inflation, weak growth, and mounting debt. Nearly half of Louisiana's state budget depends on federal aid, and 1 in 5 residents still lives below the poverty line. As the cost of living surges, many families are being forced to choose between keeping the lights on or paying for groceries. The old rhythm of resilience that once defined the state is breaking under relentless pressure. New Orleans, long celebrated for its soul and energy, now ranks among the weakest housing markets in the nation. Median home prices have fallen 7% in a year, while foreclosure filings have surged 34% statewide. Insurance premiums have exploded after repeated hurricane disasters. Private carriers have pulled out, leaving homeowners stranded with state-managed coverage that costs more and protects less. The oil and gas sector, once the cornerstone of Louisiana's economy, is eroding. Employment in energy has dropped 11% since 2022, and new federal regulations are discouraging exploration and investment. The state's pension system carries nearly $19 billion in unfunded liabilities, while the 2026 deficit is expected to exceed $1.3 billion. Baton Rouge and Shreveport are filled with empty storefronts and vacant offices. Retailers in small towns have shut down, and unemployment continues to climb. The safety nets that once kept Louisiana afloat are unraveling, one by one. This is not just an economic problem. It is a slow-motion disaster that threatens the very identity of the state. The same spirit that rebuilt New Orleans after Katrina must now confront an invisible storm of debt, poverty, and lost opportunity. Subscribe to Discover the Nation to follow how states like Louisiana are struggling to survive the next wave of America's financial reckoning. Number 2. California. California has always been the ultimate symbol of the American dream. A land of sun, success, and innovation where fortunes were built overnight and failure seemed impossible. But in 2025, that dream is collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. Beneath the glamour of Silicon Valley and the glow of Hollywood lies an economic unraveling that even the wealthiest state in America cannot ignore. The numbers are staggering. California's budget deficit has soared to $58 billion, the largest in its history.
Unfunded pension liabilities exceed $240 billion, while unemployment debt adds another $20 billion to the balance sheet. For decades, the state's economy thrived on ambition, drawing dreamers from around the world. But that endless growth has turned unsustainable. The bills have come due. Home prices across California now average over $800,000, yet median household income remains below $100,000. That gap has created the most severe housing affordability crisis in the nation. In cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles, the cost of owning or even renting a modest home has spiraled beyond reach for teachers, nurses, and working families. The average Californian now needs twice the state's median income just to qualify for a typical mortgage. Commercial real estate is in steep decline. Office vacancy rates have hit 29% in San Francisco and 21% in Los Angeles, leaving entire skyscrapers empty. Streets once filled with startups and energy now echo with silence. Homelessness has surpassed 180,000 residents. Energy costs run 40% above the national average, and utility bills are climbing faster than anywhere else in the country. Population loss has become an exodus. Hundreds of thousands leave each year for Arizona, Texas, and Florida, taking tax dollars and opportunity with them. What remains is a state split between extraordinary wealth and growing despair. California still shines on postcards, but behind the beauty is a warning to the rest of America. The fifth largest economy in the world is showing that even innovation has limits when inequality, cost, and debt collide.
Number 1. Illinois. Illinois is the silent alarm of America's economic collapse, a state drowning in debt, fleeing residents, and fading confidence. Its problems are no longer buried in balance sheets. They are visible on every street corner, in every abandoned office tower, and in every frustrated family packing up and leaving for good. Every taxpayer in Illinois now carries an effective debt burden of nearly $39,000, the highest of any major state in the country. Total unfunded obligations exceed $170 billion, and the state faces a projected deficit of up to $5 billion by 2026, even under the most optimistic scenarios. The numbers are no longer manageable. They are catastrophic. The teachers' retirement system, once the pride of public service, is funded at only 34%. Chicago's property taxes have surged 16% since 2021, driving homeowners to the brink. Violent crime has risen more than 30% in 5 years, and entire neighborhoods are emptying as families seek safer and more affordable communities. Downtown Chicago, once the pulse of the Midwest, is now lined with half-empty office towers and deserted retail spaces. The state's population has declined for 9 consecutive years. In 2024 alone, more than 84,000 residents left Illinois, taking with them their skills, their businesses, and their future tax contributions. Electricity costs are nearly 20% above the national average, while inflation-adjusted wages have stagnated since 2019. Small businesses struggle under heavy taxes and regulations, and major corporations continue to relocate their headquarters elsewhere. Illinois is trapped in a vicious cycle. Raising taxes accelerates the exodus. Cutting spending risks collapsing pensions. Borrowing buys time but deepens the long-term collapse. It is a fiscal dead end that even aggressive reform can barely slow. The next national recession could turn Illinois' slow bleed into a financial freefall. The math has stopped working, and public trust is disintegrating with it. The Midwest once represented stability and strength, but Illinois now stands as its weakest link, a state where the American dream is not dying quietly, but collapsing in plain sight. For more powerful stories exposing America's hidden economic unraveling, subscribe to Discover the Nation.
we uncover the truth behind the numbers and the people caught in the collapse.